Hello everyone, today I'm doing a book review of the book Tribe by Sebastian Junger. The main premise of this book is the idea of how we live in such a fashion that is so drastically different to our prehistoric ways that it causes dissonance in the way we live our lives and other factors, other changes that are not natural to our regular selves. So this book goes about explaining these phenomenons using two main examples to compare with: Native American tribes and war, and specific veterans and war-stricken countries and so on. And the idea with Native Americans is the one that was stuck the most prevalence with me, just because, I don't know, maybe it had a little more things to relate with rather compared to war. But the Native American thing was talking about how in the times when we were colonizing America, when Britain was colonizing America, there was always a tendency, more or less, that sometimes British settlers, European settlers, would come to America and slowly migrate to the Native American tribes, when the opposite was really never found. And Sebastian Junger kind of uses that to make the conclusion that there is an aspect of the tribe that the Native Americans had, the kind of the tight knit community that they had, that was so much better, or it had aspects that were so much more learned to the human than the regular European civilization, and it posed the question of what is there something wrong with human the current European human civilization, and so what the book Tribe did here, what the Junger did, was that they analyzed specifically what specific things could have made the tribe a more enjoyable, more human-like environment to be in. And it kind of relates it to an evolutionary sense in that the tribe is a way in which we were evolutionarily kind of programmed to evolve, and modern day society has pushed us away from that in just the last 1,000 years since the agricultural revolution, or maybe like it was a little maybe longer, that push us out of it, and we have not had time to genetically mutate to our new environments. And in our evolutionary sense, we are built to enjoy, and not enjoy, but thrive in an environment where we are with a collective group of people who are selflessly contributing towards one another, in the sense that rather than being in current society where we're thinking about what's profitable towards me, how can I gain something for myself, and how can I be kind of selfish with my transactions, which a lot of us are intrinsically, whether we or not we like to think like it, that we are rather kind of programmed to be happy and to feel good when we can be selfish towards the group and know that the group is getting something out of that and the group is returning a favor. Right? If you're with the tribe hunting and gathering together, every single action towards the group is incredibly important. Every time you make a selfish act, you're automatically putting the group at huge risk. And so actually making selfish actions is the most important thing to a group, and if you don't do that, you're automatically kicked out. So there is an evolutionary backing for kind of needing us to give good feelings relating to being selfish towards a group. That with alongside the point with that humans are meant to be in this kind of tight knit small group. We are never meant to really be alone, right? Humans were never kind of had the ability to be alone just because the survival rates were a little lower. So being able to be in tribes and groups was actually hugely advantageous to living and surviving. And that's something that we were kind of born to really need in ourselves, need in our lives. For example, rather than eating by ourselves, it's a lot more comfortable and satisfying to eat with a bunch of other humans. It is much more satisfying to actually sleep with a bunch of people in the same room, crowded in a little tiny space. There are studies, and there are case analysis where people who are sleeping together in really tight knit quarters with a bunch of other humans actually have a lot better sleep than rather than sleeping by itself, and that's something the book talks about. Um, so that's the main premise of the Native American ideal, in that you really have the tribes which are selflessly doing things together, And Junger relates this back to the modern day society, and where it's huge now, and there are all of these different government agencies like the police department, fire department, hospital, that are all taking care of these needs that were previously required by the people in the tribe to take care of. And since those are already taken care of, we have kind of lost this need to be selfless towards our people. We no longer need to do things and to help other ones. You can just call 911. You can just do whatever you want. And that, there's a downside of the modern society where we get convenience. The downside that we have lost this sense of really giving to our community and our community giving back to us. And this can make us incredibly kind of ostracized, isolated, and can cause adverse mental effects. And the book also talks about the idea that a lot of the current modern day mental illnesses that a lot of humans have, a lot of people have, are from the fact that we are just left behind, and we are just not part of a community, and we don't have the social assurance that people can give us, and it just makes us feel so lonely, and it doesn't give us the real feelings that a proper human back in the day would have had. And this kind of ties with the idea that the second part of the example that Junger uses about the wars and soldiers, and specifically how soldiers who go to war, who come back, oftentimes have to deal with extreme depression, mental illnesses, and it's not really the fact that they're dealing with the combat issues that are playing through their mind, like the PTSD, but rather than the fact that they're coming back to an environment that is so unsupportive of their experience. It makes them like bottle up these issues inside themselves. So kind of a better way to explain this is that these soldiers are coming from platoons who are going through the same experiences, who are doing all these things together, and they get that community aspect, right? That's kind of the thing that Junger talks about is actually good. So like the army, the platoon people will come back, and as soon as they come back, they're back in this environment where everything's selfish, right? Everything is to themselves. No one really cares about each other. They lost the community, first of all, right? So now they're just ostracized within their home. And you can see how that can become to stir some mental illnesses as they're processing all these really harsh things, all these things that they saw in wartime. They have nobody to share it with, nothing to vent out. And so they kind of have this all pent up in themselves, and they struggle. And that combined with other factors like not being able to find jobs, not being able to be accepted back into society with one of the most essential forms of working for something, makes them contribute to the issue of making them feel more isolated and depressed. Additionally, the fact that other people have not experienced the same thing as them, and makes them put the person who has actually been through like the battlefields on a pedestal of being like, wow, you did this, thank you for your service, that's really great, actually makes a division between these two people, and further adds to the reason why they can feel lonely. In the It relates this back to like a Native American situation where in the Native American times, when a soldier who would come back from a war with another tribe, they would be openly received because a lot of the other members have actually been through the war too, and they wouldn't really be received in the sense that, wow, great respect for you, thank you for doing that. It's rather in the sense that, okay, you did what everyone else had to do, and now you're welcome back to this community of people who have done all this. And it's a lot more comforting because people have shared the same experience. You're not different than other people, so you can feel more familiar with other people, and it's just an overall better experience. And this kind of like also is an interesting point that Junger brings up in his book about the idea of um, young men who have to pass this ritual of maturity, kind of, where a lot of them eventually have to, like when they want to prove to the tribe that they're actually worthy, have to fight and have to do something that shows that they're for the tribe and they have the bravery and the courage. And so a lot of the men eventually in the tribe have eventually go through fighting, and that's kind of the reason why there's a lot of acceptance, because everyone has been gone through it. And that also brings an interesting point in why in current society so many men kind of try to go through this ritual, this passage of maturity, by doing very risky, oftentimes stupid things. For example, maybe driving their car really fast down the highway, trying to prove themselves that they're powerful, that they have control of their lives, maybe trying to pick up fights with people, all these different things that oftentimes you see men do that a lot of times women will not really have the same behaviors of. And that's an interesting point that Junger brings up, and I think it was something that was pretty insightful for me as well. And so, going back to this connection of the modern day society when the soldier comes back home, the reason why they go through a lot of these pains and this PTSD is not so the experience and the severity of the things they went through in the war, where actually in the most cases, the most people who go through PTSD are the people who actually experience kind of the backside and just experience very little things, but it's rather because they're coming home to very minimal support and not getting really what they need, which can just bottle up their issues and stuff. And so Junger kind of recommends that this a method of letting these veterans come out into like the city council hall and being able to vent out their issues as a way of kind of interacting with the community and sharing their issues to a collective body of people, which is what Junker says to be incredibly important for being able to dispense the stress of the situation of their experience with the community around them. And so that's a big premise of the example of the wartime, and I mean the soldier specifically. But adding on to that, the idea of the war bringing people together is also something that Junger talks about. In most cases, when we have regular civilization, our enemies are oftentimes the competitors in the capitalistic environment, and where we have to be better than everyone else and making money and all that stuff. And so we kind of feel alone and separated from all these other people who we're actually supposed to be close to in the same country, in the same area, in the same place, you know what I mean? That's all really connected. So the only times where you actually really feel that is when there's an external issue. You can kind of probably see this in sci-fi movies when there's maybe aliens who are coming over and people finally realize they have to unite together to save themselves. But in a more realistic, real-world environment, we have wars, which cause people to really have to consider bringing each other together. There are stories in where when war times happen, although they're going through tremendous stress, that is the first time where bodies of people get together and try to work together. There's an example that Junger says in his book where during a war happening somewhere in the Middle East, that there was just an apartment complex of people who used to never even talk to each other. As soon as the war happened, they all gathered together, all into like a security bunker on the basement, and they would go through a bunch of rituals together, eating together. They would do everything together. Everyone would start to get to know each other there soon. And it's not. I'm not saying that you need war in order to create this type of environment. Actually, in this case, modern society, this is the example that Junger is using, but it goes to show how this external issue of facing something together can cause a group of people to come to be connected a lot more stronger and humanly. And in the same example, I was following the story of a girl, the perspective of a girl. As soon as the girl kind of was well, I think the parents of the girl was trying to get her out of the country or make sure that she was safe. And as soon as that goal was accomplished, the girl actually started to feel depression in the new country she was in. She felt like she had no community support. She felt like she lost that social aspect that was so prevalent in that little apartment during the war. So she actually was trying to get money to go back to the war country, which is something that is unheard of. But because of the factors of the human needing that kind of tribe environment, it is really just so addictive and so powerful to want to go back to that environment. So that is a basic summary of kind of the ideas that the book Tribe talks about. Of course, I'm just deciphering in my own way. I'm not really referencing exact quotes, exact things other than my basic paraphrasing and my memory. So I wouldn't really take my words with a huge grain of, I would take my words with a huge grain of salt and don't really try to use it directly to make the decision of whether or not this book is good or not. In my own opinion, I think that was a really insightful read to see kind of the social psychology of how we used to live in tribes and how that affects the whole world as of now. I think it's a really interesting perspective to have one has been really useful to actually looking around the world and deciphering it as it is. Um, I really did enjoy the book. I think the writing style was very easy to follow along. It's a relatively shorter book, but nonetheless very insightful, informational, concise, and overall entertaining. That's my book review for the book Tribe. If you liked it, please let me know in the comments if you have any ideas, questions, comments, anything. And yeah, that was the video for today. Thank you.